This is Radio Heinlein, Episode 5, Megacity and Banlist. It's the 19th of July, and somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning, I finally go to get some sleep. In about 4 hours, I'll be waking up to head to the Nordic Megacity tournament. Registration starts at 10. At midnight, I was still shopping for a corp deck. About a month earlier, when we decided at home that I'd be going, I immediately knew what any other shaper, jank enjoyer would know. I had to bring a homebrew Dewey deck as my runner. Naturally, with work and the 3 small kids at home, there was never going to be much time for prep. But Dewey it was. I landed on something I liked, but of course, that came at the cost of having barely touched the corp side. In the end, I decided to pick up a Leo deck. I found a build that landed in my comfort zone of classic Glacier HB. So, sleeving up, double-checking the decks, prepping the backpack for the day, and suddenly it's almost morning. Alarm. Got up, did the morning routines, said goodbye, and ran off to the train. This megacity wasn't just a competitive event for me. It was an opportunity to finally meet the Swedish netrunner community that I usually only see on Discord. It would also be the first tournament I'd attend since Worlds Barcelona back in 2023. Aksu and Council had registered for the tournament, so we'd also be getting some celebrity attendance. Hurriedly, I was working my way through sample hands for the Leo deck, just to get any practice at all with it. Transfer to the subway. A couple of stations later, I step out into the warm summer weather Stockholm had been having for a few days. For the vampire that I am, stepping into 28 degrees Celsius and clear blue skies, I wasn't catching fire, but I was definitely longing for an air conditioner. I arrive at the venue with about 10 minutes to spare. After some quick chatting and registration, the tournament gets underway. Lots of Sable. Lots of Hoshiko. On the corp side, a pretty even faction mix. Unless you count HB, which expectedly was almost not represented. The first 2 rounds pass. We all quickly realized that a single floor fan placed at one of the tables was not going to cut it. The heat wasn't getting to people yet, but I definitely got flashbacks to the sauna that was the main hall in Worlds Barcelona. Speaking of Worlds Barcelona, in between rounds, I got a hold of someone I first met back there. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm hbarsquared. I am a recovering American. I've been living in Sweden for 5 years. I've been playing Netrunner for about 10.
So, first obvious question right away, considering we had the ban list land yesterday. For those who are not aware, we had Deep Dive banned, Banghar was banned, Lumino was unbanned, and then the third one was Info Bounty.
Info Bounty, yeah.
Info Bounty was also banned.
Yeah.
And there's rationale behind all of those. Mm-hmm. So my first question, which one of these cards struck hardest for you? Of like, but whether it was joy or whether it was dread over what this will do, what struck hardest?
I'm going to say Oko, not being on the list or having any meaningful cards taken from it.
Very good point.
But really, of the cards that were on the ban list that were mentioned in the article, I'm going to say Banghar. It's a powerful card. It's a great card for Anarchs. It just has too much support in the form of things that like being trashed out of hand, things that like you not having to care about ice. And it's had its time in the sun, and I think he can retire it to the ban list in good taste.
Are you part of the crowd that which would say that this card has been not just had its time in the sun, but also made one wonder, should this not have gone way earlier?
The ban list is a really difficult thing to curate, and I have the utmost respect for the people who work on the balance committee at Null Signal Games, and Banghar has been a power card, but maybe not hyper oppressive in the past. So I'm not going to second guess their work. I think it's a great time for him to be banned.
Would you agree with the idea that probably, however, this is a design space which now has a hole which probably will be filled by future cards, especially considering Phoenix?
I think so. I think it makes sense. It's a very Anarch color pie kind of effect. But it was just, it was over the curve and had too much support printed for it and just became its own ice-breaking engine. And it reduced the interesting decision space and deck building and play down to cards in hand. And so I think trashing cards will always be important for Anarchs, but I don't think we'll see something exactly like Banghar.
Will you be missing Deep Dive?
I love Deep Dive. I'm a Shaper player at heart, even though I tend to only play terrible Shaper decks and they don't work. Deep Dive's a great card. I love it. I'm going to miss it. Like so many great green cards, it would have been better if it weren't splashable. If we could have a shape of the game where you can just have cards like Deep Dive.
Can we just stay with our terrible faction, which is too convoluted for its own good, doesn't quite work, and just has key pieces out of it ripped out for other more well-functioning factions?
Exactly, yeah. Make bad green cards that are really good but can only stay in green. Just like have influence be not a number, right? And then
this is something, agenda amount of influence is something I'm missing in this game, sincerely.
I think it opens up a huge amount of design space. I think it is a slight cognitive hurdle for new players, that it would be a little confusing for some people who are new and this is the first time they've seen it. But I think it's a neat idea, and I'd love to see Null Signal explore it.
Considering Deep Dive's gone, and it was used in Deep Dive Sable quite commonly, I don't know if that's the most common use of Deep Dive, but it certainly was a prominent one. Then you have Info Bounty going. How hurt do you think Sable is by this ban list?
I think Sable works in a lot of ways because they have just 45 great cards and, they got that blue value. Obviously, Deep Dive going is going to wipe out one type of Sable deck. The twinning deck is, losing Info Bounty. I saw somebody mention earlier, I think on Slack, that Info Bounty allowed you to launder Chesva credits into real credits, and I think that's an important distinction. I don't think it's going to be a huge hit, and I think Sable's going to be maybe the runner to beat in the next upcoming season.
Considering Luminal is back, the question I feel that has to be asked is, how do you feel about one per deck agendas?
I love Luminal. It's such a dumb card. It's like, if you get to score it as the corp, you just like, what do I do with all these clicks? If you steal it as a run, you're like, ha, now you can't do the thing. Now all your agendas are just normal agendas. I think HB needed a boost. I don't think it was Luminal. I don't think Luminal coming off the ban list is going to really affect the meta one way or the other. But it's going to make for some beautifully dumb turns, and I'm all for that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it as fun when you're on the other side of the table?
It's like watching somebody set off a bunch of fireworks. It's like, wow, that was cool. They're not my fireworks. They're yours. That's fun. Except you lose at the end. So I guess maybe it's getting hit by fireworks. I don't know. This metaphor got away from me.
More or less.
So, yeah, I think it can be fun. It depends on the stakes. It's always frustrating when a game is decided on that level of variance. But this is a card game. It's inherently random. We draw cards. Sometimes you draw 5 agendas, and then you just lose. Sometimes you score a Luminal, or your opponent scores a Luminal, and then a bunch of stuff happens. So it's just part of the game.
Well, in the game hall, we have Aksu, who I was on record on just an episode ago in his podcast that he's vehemently against one per deck agendas, and I mean I can see that angle, especially with the most powerful one of them being so powerful. So you got your single card that turns the game. I understand the contention around it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. But I don't think the problem is one per deck agendas. There's 4 of them, I think, maybe more. And nobody complains about the other 3, right? Luminal is it's a ridiculously powerful agenda, and it would be terrible for the game if it was 3 per deck, right? Should the card exist? I don't know. I don't think it's going to bring HB back. I think if HB comes back and it becomes a combo enabler or something like that, it'll go right back on the ban list. But 1 per deck agendas, yeah, it's fine. They're not currents. They're not terrible. They're just kind of fine.
I guess since Alco was mentioned, do we expect that Cohort gets on the list for the next ban list?
I expect something red to get on the next ban list. I think a lot of it's going to depend on, of course, the continental season, what shakes out. I think Oko now, with runners getting weaker across the board, Oko is the default choice. If you want to win a tournament, you got to, think real hard as to whether you're going to bring Oko or something else. And a lot of people find it an unfun deck to play against. I think it's beatable, but now other corps are going to rise up, and so people can tech less against it. So we'll see. I can't predict the ban list, but I think Oko will have to be taken down a notch before Worlds.
Do you agree with the statement that the shell of Oko is currently being used in frequently horizontal ways, but that the idea has the potential for actually going in not just maybe a bit more vertical, but generally be used in a greater variety of ways?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you read the text on Oko, and it's basically pure value. It doesn't say anything specifically about assets or upgrades or horizontal styles. I think a lot of the support cards encourage a horizontal play, and traditionally a lot of the corp decks that draw a lot of cards want to play horizontally, because when you draw cards, you draw agendas, you have to have somewhere to put them. If you've got one remote and it's full of something, and you just drew 2 agendas off your ID ability, you're starting to flood up. You're starting to have a problem. With horizontal, you just throw them on the table and dare the runner to check them. So I think there's an inherent horizontal bias, but I think you could make a great Glacier Oko.
Anything else?
This is the greatest game that's ever been made. If you've been thinking about getting into it, there's never been a better time. And if you want to join all of us celebrating everything about it, come to Edinburgh. Volunteer with Null Signal and join us at Worlds.
hbarsquared, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Lunch, then some more rounds. The Leo deck was carrying me, almost playing itself. Marcia Ballard dropping taller and taller stacks of ice, then getting trashed to kick the runner out of the server. Felt like Architects of Tomorrow. Dewey, on the other hand, asked much more of me, and I just couldn't manage. Misplace, poor matchup prep. Things fell apart. But honestly, not disappointing. I mean, Dewey is hard, and I expected to probably fail. I managed to grab a hold of one of my opponents, who the next day ended up with his brother in the Top Cut finals. So, hello. Would you like to firstly introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Saintis. I've been playing Netrunner since late Sansan cycle, around when Faust came out, and been playing continuously up until Endo Borealis. Then I took a sort of 2-year break, and now I'm back and really enjoying this new meta.
So coming into the game in the Faust days, how was that?
It was really interesting because I didn't have the whole set, but I really like playing Noise. So I played Noise with standard code gate breakers, and everyone kept on installing like Turing against Faust, and got really sad when I then slapped down Yogg Zero and like just broke everything for free. But yeah, it was tough because everyone else had much better decks than me because they had all the cards.
Yeah, I guess that's something that has changed over time. By now, you kind of expect most people who are in the game to actually have the full set of cards, especially since you can proxy as well. So that has changed over time. Do you remember those days fondly? The days of, well, I wouldn't say early, but like mid-era FFG Netrunner?
Well, they have a, nostalgia in a sense. Like there were some fun decks that I really enjoyed, but a lot of it, I think, was just playing against people who played the really good decks and then just being really frustrated because they were just so much better than what I could put together. Like it took me, I don't know, half a year to even get copies of Jackson Howard, so I couldn't even like do the whole filtering my hand for agendas. So I played a lot of punitive Counter-Strike, like 3-pointers in order to... That's the only way really I felt you could reasonably play with sort of not the ideal cards. But the exciting bit, I guess, was trying to catch up on the collection and like finding that one data pack. I would go through Netrunner DB and be like, oh, I want this card from that data pack. Oh, and like, where can I find it? And it's like, oh, now it's on discount, or like it's not super expensive, and I get really excited. But it was an interesting time coming in, like very behind on the card pool, very behind on like how to play compared to everyone else. And I do agree that now when you can just print off the proxies and no one has any issues with that, it's a lot easier to get into the game.
Certainly, but there's also, I don't want to apply too strong feelings of nostalgia to the old FFG times, but it was a different experience altogether to have those 6 data packs with their own story inserts and indeed, like, I have these cards, but I don't have these cards. I guess what can I do with this subset of the totality of the cards that other may have? So certainly a different era. I was going to shift quickly to the modern era, and I will ask the question which I've asked previous participants, which is, I'm sure that you're aware of the ban list that came out yesterday, and the last person I asked, what is the card on the ban list or in the comments surrounding the ban list that struck you the hardest, of like, oh, this, you were the most happy or the most upset about the changes or what was written in the update?
Yeah, so I think the ban list looks reasonable. I'm honestly a bit surprised it's only 4 cards, or like 3 cards added and 1 card removed. I thought there would be a bigger change, but I guess that shows that they did a pretty good job at the release ban list. I'm happy that the Deep Dive is on the list because, you know, it's a fun little combo card, but because you lost all these counter cards like Crisium and Border Control, I think it makes it very hard to play decks with 3-pointers in it. Before this, like running up to this tournament, I tested a lot of a Nuvem list, but then I realized if you ran into someone with Deep Dive, you just lose once they get to like 2 points because they'll find 5 points at least on the Deep Dive. I feel it opens up the space of which decks you can play by removing Deep Dive. And the other 2 cards, I don't have much of a sort of... getting rid of Info Bounty mostly hits Sable, because I think other criminals don't benefit as much in playing it, perhaps. But yeah, and I think Sable, you know, seems to be very prevalent. And also looking at the current meta, you know, why would you play a different crim than Sable? And I don't really know much about about the Anarchs right now, except that Hoshiko seems to be very dominant. I wish I could play Anarchs that were not Hoshiko. At some point I'm going to try to learn Seb, but I feel like that ban seems reasonable, but I also haven't really played Anarchs in the current meta at all, so I don't have much to say.
So you're not part of the crowd that's enthusiastic about the long overdue ban of Banhar, or do you find that to be, let's say, a slightly too exaggerated position?
I haven't really played with... I think Banhar came out in the... When did Banhar came out even? Borealis. Yeah, I don't think I played that much with it, so I never experienced it as a problem.
How about against it?
I also haven't really played against it. I think at that time I didn't play...
You're a lucky person.
I am a very lucky person, yeah. So for me, reading the card and hearing people talk about it, I'm like, okay, yeah, this reminds me of DDoS. And DDoS was one of those cards where for the longest time people were saying, yes, this card is fine. And then it really was not fine. So I think a lot of these cards will sort of simmer and then just turn out to be really problematic. And once you ban it, you sort of realize how much better the game is. I feel like Deep Dive is in the similar area in that free pick from 8 cards is a lot of, you know, access.
The previous commenter, hbarsquared from who's inside, he had the reflection of, as a Shaper player, he says, why must it be that these Shaper cards leave our faction and go and be abused in other factions? Can it not stay in our over-convoluted faction and like just barely work? Does it have to be this way? And he suggested like, why don't we just remove all of the influence off of this card and just keep it in our malfunctioning little box over here?
I can sympathize with that, except, I used to live through the ages when Criminal was just a faction that printed support cards for the other factions.
Very true.
So, haha, sucks to be Shaper now.
Yeah, I guess Shaper is paying for the occasional egregious crimes. Every time, it's as Whiteblade once put it over in our article, which I don't remember the title of, but basically it came down to World Tree had just started to going crazy, taking over the entire meta, and he basically concluded that when Shaper is good, everything just sucks.
I can sort of agree with that.
Yeah, so I'm okay with paying with Deep Dive. As another deplorable Shaper player, I'll happily pay with Deep Dive for Ban Hard to Go.
That seems very reasonable.
How has the tournament gone so far, and what are you playing?
So I'm playing Swicky and Sable, Reg Sable, and Fast Advanced Swicky. And so far, it's 1 loss, 1 win with Swicky, and 2 wins with Sable. So it's feeling quite all right. I'm enjoying playing both decks. They're quite fun. And this is actually the first time I play single-sided Swiss, and I find this both a little bit sad, because I'm always end the first game wondering, what would the other matchup be? But it's also very refreshing to not have that sort of overarching, do you want a ID or 2-for-1 instead? So I think it's overall a good improvement.
Now, I know that we're only 4 or 3 games in? 4 games. 4 games in. So there's 2 left. But any thoughts about the, let's say, very hyper-local meta that you're experiencing here on the Stockholm Megacity?
So far, we're looking at the list. I feel like we have the usual suspects. It's like a lot of AUCO and a lot of Swicky Waylands. I think there's a lot more Nuvems than Swickies, but yeah, Wayland and AUCO. And I think that's sort of what to expect. Similarly, we have a lot of Sables. Sable is a very, comfortable deck to play, I think. And then you have a lot of people on some interesting decks. So I think you often get this thing when you have like a smaller tournament after a big tournament, like the UK Nats/Sheffield Megacity, that all the good decks over there will be brought into the local one. But I think that's also okay, because you get to try them again, and then sometimes they will work and sometimes they won't work because maybe everyone else already plays decks teched against AUCO, or who knows. So I think it's fairly nice. And also you get to have the fun of playing these sort of, more competitive decks, even though the meta feels much, or is much smaller than like the UK meta.
Any final words?
I'm having a really good time, and I want to shout out to Postis, who's organizing this tournament, for just having a great day. And fortunately and unfortunately, the weather's really nice, which means it's really warm in there. But I will try to endure the last 2 rounds, and then we'll see how I end today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you too.
The games kept going. By the 6th game, people were pretty cooked by the heat. Final results for me: 3 wins on Corp with a deck I'd never even played, and 0 wins on Runner, despite a month of testing and tweaking. Ironic, right? As for standings, in the end, Council ended up placing at the top of the Swiss. I chatted him up and got to do an interview with him. So, firstly, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I go among many names as the Council, and my passion is traveling for Netrunner.
So you just placed at the top of this Stockholm Megacity event. I guess the question to start with is, how did it go, and did it go roughly as you expected?
I don't know if I had big expectations, but there was a rough game in the middle. For people at home, it's also really hot here today. It's way hotter than usual. I was very proud to not tilt off of that, I think, because there was a chance you could. But I managed to remain pretty stable, and then it went pretty well.
we were talking just before this interview that I think it's you and I guess Augustus Caesar that one finds traveling around in the European event, because we had some people wondering like, wait, we've seen Council registering for some other European event. He's in all of these. Is it that you like try to hit all of them in a season, or are you just trying to pick up those that are following along some vacation schedule or something like that?
I think my vacation schedule like revolves around where the tournaments are. But also, last year I was quote-unquote in retirement, and so I took it easy. I made EMEA, I volunteered there, I crashed Italian Nationals, and apart from that I didn't do much. So I think it depends on, but this year I'm kind of on. So yeah, I tried to make as many as I could.
How has it been going so far this year?
It's been first at Brno, second at Paris against Ryan Bantwins, who did an amazing finals, which I'm very grateful for. And next week's going to be Berlin. And the week after is going to be EMEA. So that's going to be fun too.
Is that schedule potentially too intense? Like, are you just managing it as good as you can? Or is it spaced out sufficiently to rest, survey the meta, reconsider deck choices? Like, how does it work out schedule-wise?
It was a lot of preparation beforehand, so that when you have this very intense session, you can kind of go on the fly. It was also staying flexible. Like the ban list dropped, I was like, are my decks still going to be legal or not? You know, like you never know that. But I have a good team back at home, so I have a lot of people to like communicate with and like schedule things.
I was just about to ask, considering I've asked all of the previous people that I've interviewed, and of course I'm curious considering the ban list that dropped yesterday. The question I've been posing to the others has been which card has been the one which like hit you hardest, whether like positively, oh great, this is wonderful for my decks, the meta or whatever, or it's been like, oh, this is terrible, my decks are all ruined now. Is there one card that really stands out for you?
Well, for the memesters at home, they will know I hate Estobrado, and that not getting banned is rough. But like, if I'm being real, I said Luminal getting unbanned is my worst case scenario because I don't like how the one-off card plays, even though HB definitely needs the shot in the arm. And otherwise, there weren't big surprises. Info Bounty I didn't see coming, but the other two I was kind of sure were getting hit.
There was this conversation or elaboration over in the article regarding Auko and the speculation of, well, you've read the article, and nothing in Auko was hit, at least like directly targeted. And they were talking about like, well, we'll keep looking at it. We did have solid representation of Auko here too. And we got, I think there was one in the top cut, or was there one just below? I don't quite remember. We had one at least at the place just below the cut, and I think there was two or more of them. How do you feel currently? We're not even going to speculate about, well, how does the ban list affect things? But just given what we have been seeing and what has already, and Auko has already gone through a bit of transitions, there's been some experimentation. It's not just one archetype. How do you feel about the fact that, well, no bans right now, and even SPT are aware that, well, we will need to keep an eye on this?
There's a complex answer to your question. I'm going to have to reach out a little bit. And immediately I would say I think it's good to wait. Because I think beating Auko is largely a skill issue. I think it's something you can learn. But it's something very tricky and difficult. And an Auko deck is a very powerful thing. But at the same time, I do believe it's unclear whether or not something needs to get banned. I could have seen a Sting ban, maybe a Bladderwort ban. People are saying that Aukos don't play Bladderwort, but I think it's a really good card in the deck. Like, Auko being like slightly brought down a little bit. But I think it is correct to wait and see if the player base learns how to play against Auko, are the win rates going to stay up, or are we going to start seeing them come down?
I find it very interesting that you mention Bladderwort and actually not the ones that you mentioned, but indeed that you did not, for instance, mention the typically mentioned ones. As I spoke with some others, the obvious candidates come up. Cohort needs to go. FAT needs to go, although I questioned that a little bit. And also Moonpool needs to go. That was actually even mentioned in a podcast just recently, the King's Court podcast. You had, I think it was Not Again that was suggesting like, no, the Moonpool is actually a very problematic card. Now, given this, you actually went for those that some have mentioned on like 5th place or 6th place of this is problematic. And you actually made me think, you mentioned the skill issue aspect. I guess this begs the question, do you view the deck as difficult to play against, but potentially within the boundaries of like, no, this is a moderately healthy deck. People just need to get better. This is not an inherently toxic deck by the nature of its abilities.
I would say yes. I would say initially the one thing that can be toxic is how Moonpool sometimes plays. And so I would agree that's a card that could go. The other two, FET and CGP, are extremely powerful. They're some of the best cards in Alco. But I think the goal of the banlist shouldn't be breaking Alco's back. It should be relegating Alco back to somewhere that is powerful without being more powerful than everything else. And so I think a Sting or Moonpool ban that bans the more extreme plays that can happen against an Alco is preferable to taking away its most powerful tools.
Just as a minor side comment regarding Luminal, you're not alone in voicing your opinion against, firstly, limit 1 per decks, and secondly, Luminal in particular. I guess we didn't mention Info Bounty, or we didn't elaborate much on Info Bounty, or Deep Dive for that matter. Do you have anything to say about Deep Dive in particular, or is it mostly like, yeah, this was expected, regardless of whether it was merited or not? I should add, I am not questioning those people who think it's merited that this thing went. There's been a big outcry for getting this card banned, but I don't know your position on it.
I'm not an expert, but my highly competitive Shaper player friends like Cobra Bubbles and some others have been saying that it's too easy to land the Deep Dive in this meta. There's too little counterplay, and corps were kind of like torn apart on both ends. So I think like it was the most likely card of the Shaper cards to be banned. It was also hard to say what else could have been hit, I think.
I guess I'll just ask as a way to slightly change topic. I think before this interview, I don't remember if I overheard a conversation or whether it was when we were talking before. So how long have you been playing Netrunner?
So I started playing when Mumbat was coming out, which I think informs a lot of my playstyle, right? I say like Aoko is a skill issue. I've always been used to Jinteki assets being on the top. But I took a break for 2 years. And then my first tournament was in 2019 when NSG was already starting up in Uppsala. So for me, it's a bit like coming home, like playing in Stockholm again. And actually doing well at the Stockholm tournament feels pretty good. And yeah, I've been playing technically for 8 years, but really competitively, I would say for 5 or 6.
Would you say that the game has, I mean, of course it has changed in various ways, not just like the philosophy of the card design. Certainly when the NSG era was very young, we can see huge differences between such a cycle as Ashes compared to Liberation, Elevation, Borealis. But apart from obvious maturation of the organization and of the design, are there other aspects of the game, like the community or how the game is run, that has changed over time?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think even though it was already always a little bit inclusive, it's become a lot more inclusive, which is lovely to see. And we're now seeing a new generation of competitive players, new players who have played other kinds of card games before coming in, informed by other kinds of game logic. And this also affects designers, which I think is more of a whole industry shift in how fast a game should go and those kinds of questions. So like, I do feel like Netrunner used to be a bit more like a board game, and increasingly it's becoming a little bit more like a card game, which, you know, whether it's a good or bad change is up for the individual to decide, I think.
Just have one final question, which this is jumping back a little in what we were talking about, which is we established previously that you've been bouncing around in various tournaments. So by extension of that, you've seen players presuming that there's a, if not predominance, at least like an increase of local players for a particular tournament. And I'm curious as to whether, firstly, you generally see, you could say local, or like not even local, like hyper local metas for each particular tournament. If that happens, Contrast to, of course, like, oh, no, everyone's just in a global meta and they're just picking up stuff from NetRunnerDB or whatever. And if you maybe have seen something by the games you've played and seen here on this particular tournament, or if you, again, just view it like, no, this is mostly like, I see a global trend generally here in what I play against.
I think when I look back to earlier tournaments I visited, I would always be like, Czech Republic loves Ag Infusion, or Stockholm people love playing PE. You know, like north of England, they all play tag and bag. Like, there always used to be these big trends. And recently, I feel like there's been a bit of a homogenization. Like, as deck lists get posted on NetRunnerDB and we figure out faster what the quote-unquote strongest decks in a given meta are, there's a little bit less, but people do still experiment, and there are still, I would say, trends also with testing groups. Each testing group has its own logic and bias in how they approach the game. And so both of these things, because some testing groups are also locally based, affect, you know, how a game is played and what a given group of people think is a powerful way to play the game. Like, there always used to be a divide between America and Europe in if they think kill is a powerful line or not, for example.
With that, do you have any closing words? You want to say something before we wrap up?
We gotta ban Estobrado before Worlds, or we're all doomed.
Absolutely necessary change. SBT will hear your words, surely. So, Council, thank you very much for the interview we got to do right now. Thank you. And congratulations on placing at the top of the Swiss. Good luck tomorrow. After about 8 hours, day one of the tournament was wrapping up. I knew I wouldn't be able to attend day two, so before leaving, I made sure to get a hold of the organizer, Postis, a pillar of the Swedish Netrunner community. First of all, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Johannes Postis, more commonly known as probably. And I'm TO and general player about town in the Swedish Netrunner community.
Known exceptionally well over in the various Discord channels for being extremely enthusiastic about rules and the activities of those people who manipulate and improve the rules of the game, correct?
Alas, yes.
You do also have a blog for this purpose, for those that are not aware. Is that correct as well?
Yeah, it's I hesitate to say I write for the Logic Bomb blog because it's been over a year, I think, since I wrote anything. But yeah, I started a blog because I had some feelings about rules I needed to get out of myself. So I needed someone to write them down.
I sympathize with this feeling greatly. Someone has to say what is not said. I was going to ask, just for people to get an idea, beyond, of course, like part of the community who, for instance, likes to chime in when rules questions are topic of the day, what part would you say you have, what role or how do you participate in the Swedish Netrunner community in particular, currently and maybe some history going back?
Yeah, historically, I've mainly just been playing the game and despairing that I never put enough practice time in, so I never get any results of note. But lately, like this last year or two, I've been doing more and more TO work because it's been needed. And I've been feeling very strongly that we need to continue making this game happen. So I've been doing more of that than I've historically have been doing, and I'm still learning a lot doing that. This, I think, has been one of the largest profile tournaments that I've been the TO of so far.
How has it looked historically with the tournaments? Like if we think, maybe imagine, we could start by focusing on the NSG era of the game. How has it looked in Sweden with respect to organized play? We're talking about frequency, size, whether it's centered only around one city or whether it's bouncing around. What's the character and maybe progression of organized play in Sweden?
The frequency of tournaments dropped a lot almost immediately after FFG stopped organizing it. And people continued, under NSG, but there were markedly fewer events with with there no longer being this as obvious pipeline of stores ordering these the store championship kits and such.
And just for the listeners' understanding, how many events, maybe during the late FFG era, how many events could one maybe expect? We're talking roughly, just so we have something to compare to.
I'm not, I don't think I'm the most reliable source of the numbers here. And I think the available event kits, it's very comparable under NSG. So it's more that people were not ordering the event kits as much. I don't want to say there weren't any tournaments. There's been tournaments the entire time. But yeah, there's been fewer of them. Sorry, I can't give you numeric specifics. Not comfortable naming any numbers.
No, that's absolutely fine. I guess I was also curious, let's say related to the organized play, but maybe more so even the community in general. Is it centered around a couple of cities? Is it spread out across the country? I guess it would be helpful to know some of the geography of Sweden to take into account how players would be potentially spread out. If you don't know, it's a long country and it gets very sparse with respect to population the further up you go. But is it centered around a couple of cities?
Yeah, it's always been a southern part of Sweden thing, even under FFG. Netrunner was most active from Stockholm and down south from there. There was always a bit of a scene up in Umeå, for those who know where that is, quite a way north, that we kind of separated from the rest of the community. They had their events and they continued on for many years. But in the NSG era, they didn't continue, as far as I know. Haven't heard anything recently, at least. And so it's always been like focus around some of these key cities, Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö. But there are also several others have been very active. Halmstad, Linköping, where I'm from. Örebro was a big hotspot back in the day. Isn't that much of one anymore? Probably forgetting a few relevant ones that I should have mentioned here. But now, in the recent years, it's been mostly, I don't want to brag, but it's been mostly Linköping carrying the torch. We've been trying to continue do most of the regular events. It's not called store championships anymore, but yeah, the circuit openers, the now casual tournaments, and then regionals were removed entirely, but now come back in the form of district, which is very nice because that's a size of event that fits Sweden much better than some of the other ones, because we've always had smaller events just in general. But so we try to have all the events, but often with very few participants. And people in other places have been doing them as well. But so, for example, there's been a lot of the game night kits, and we've kind of haven't had time to use all of them because our normal sized events are already so small. So the need for an additional smaller event has not been great. But yeah, so we've been trudging on through, we're talking about the pandemic years as well, which has hit everyone in all the obvious ways. But now I want to say I hope at least it seems like that Stockholm is kind of waking up again. People having more meetups. In Linköping we have regular meetups. But I think we're one of the only places who actually have we meet every other week and play. In Gothenburg, they play some, but I don't know exactly how much. And in Malmö, they at least organize and play in tournaments. I don't know how much they meet outside of tournaments. And it's often been in these recent years like this, that we really have to have tournaments to make people play at all. That's how you wake people up. It's been hard organizing frequent meetups just because there's so few of us. So getting the butts in chairs to make it a full meetup every week or every other week even, it's just been that's just been very hard to do.
Yeah, I can sympathize with the feeling of, well, if it's going to happen, I guess I'll just have to make it happen. The people who will pull the community in the direction of liveliness, those are few and far in between. So I can only commend you for taking it on yourself. And on the topic of how...
Can I actually comment on that before we continue? I want to, in case no one has done that already, I want to give a great shout out to Harald H. Nauch on in the community spaces.
Known to the Swedish community as the guy who says good morning to everyone in the Discord chat every day, doesn't matter. Still in the Slack, by the way, which means that there are weeks when there might be messages that are nothing but good morning from Harald. He keeps going, and he deserved to get himself dedicated emote in the Discord, which is just his face. And people actually by this time just use that instead of good morning. It's well established enough.
Yeah, Harald means good morning. And he also means tournaments, because he's been the one doing a lot of the tournaments, especially in the Linköping area, for many years, even in the before times, in the FFG era. He organized a lot of them. We wouldn't exist without him. I guess right now I'm feeling like, it's time for me to pay back a bit as well. I've been skimming along, just getting to play all these years. And now it's needed. Yeah, I've had this feeling that, I had to do it.
How did this tournament go? We could start with just the organizational perspective.
Oh, very well, I'd say. The only real problem has been the heat.
For reference, it is very hot right now. What is it, like 28 degrees Celsius today? Something like that? Yeah. Well, a lot. And
it's getting better now, but it was excessive earlier today. And yeah, the venue, it's a very nice venue, and but they don't have air conditioning, and that was really noticeable. We had a huge fan that he put out for us, so thank you for that. But it only helped a little bit. It was just extremely hot the entire day.
For those who maybe were present for that event, I actually don't know. Were you present for Worlds Barcelona?
No, I wasn't.
Okay, well, then I can tell you that this event was less hot than Worlds Barcelona. Anyone who was there got to experience quite the sauna, and those who were there in the venue and on top of that were underneath the section which had a window shining light straight down.
I heard about that.
Yeah, that was... those people got some extra... that wasn't just sauna, that was straight up cooking. So we have not reached Barcelona World's levels of cooking in the room, but it was pretty bad still.
Yeah, it's really hot days in the entire Europe right now, so I get that we are still, not hit the worst. But yeah, very hot day for Netrunner. But apart from that, organizationally, it's been going very well. It's a very helpful venue. They've been... very accommodating and letting us pre-order food in the morning, so we just get lunch served in the lunch break. Extremely convenient and very nice. It's a really cool place. It's the only one like it in the country, a proper gaming bar. Well, I say it's the only one like it. It's the only one I know of in the country. Please correct me. Actually, if you know I'm wrong on this, let me know where the others are.
It might be a future venue indeed.
So I expect we'll be using them again, but maybe not in July.
It's been okay, but we will certainly need to keep this in mind for future events. I think we've been dragging on for a bit. We've been talking about a lot about this stuff. So to keep it short and sweet, is there anything you would want to add? Some final words?
Play Netrunner. Just continue to play this game, which is the best game. Of course, I in particular hope that it can, revive itself a bit in Sweden in particular. There used to be quite an active scene, and it's still active, but it's a small number of people keeping it going. And it would be really nice to see it get... I don't expect it will be as popular as under FFG. There's just not the marketing behind it for that to be possible. But it would be nice to see it get back some of its... energy, and I'm optimistic right now because I'm seeing new players joining much more regularly right now than like a year or two ago.
Excellent. Well, with that, thank you, Postis, and looking forward to the next tournament.
Me too.
And with that, we wrap up episode 5. Even though I could only stay for one day, it was absolutely worth it. I'm already hoping to make it back next year. Thanks to hbarsquared, Saintis, Council, and Postis for their participation. A special thanks to my wife, who made it possible for me to get a rare full day of Netrunner. This day and this episode wouldn't have happened without her. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with a friend. If you'd like to hear more, make sure you subscribe. The music of the intro and outro is Mystery Things by Kjartan Abel. This is Radio Heinlein. Runners, run boldly. Sysops, stay vigilant.